Well, Tommy, I thought this pretty interesting that Vice-President Kamala Harris, well, she said that she is ready to serve, God help us all, amid the mounting concerns over the president's age and mental capacity. And during an interview with the Wall Street Journal, she said, quote, "I am ready. There's no question about that," and said everyone who sees her on the job walks away fully aware of her capacity to lead. Now, what do you make of this? I mean, this is a woman who's normally talking about Venn diagrams and yellow school buses. Would that still be a step up from Joe Biden?
That's the tough spot that the Democrat Party is in, because you've got Joe Biden that can likely use his dementia and his cognitive failings as an excuse. But Kamala Harris does not have that excuse. She's just, quite frankly, lazy and bad at her job. And when she says she's ready to lead, I mean, two words for you: southern border. That was the first job she was tasked with, as being the border czar. And you can see how well that's working out for our country. But the thing that bothers me most about Kamala Harris is that she doesn't even seem to try to do the job. Just last week, she had an event where she was talking about gun violence, and once again, she served up a word salad. She doesn't do her homework. She doesn't attempt to do her job. She doesn't attempt to put anything together that even remotely makes sense or even conveys a message at all. So she doesn't want the job. So she might say that she's ready if Joe isn't the nominee. Some say that she's the next in line. But I quite honestly don't think she wants the job, because if she wanted the job, she would try harder to convince us she was ready for it. Beyond just saying she is, she hasn't given us any proof of that.
Well, of course, there's always the possibility, Tommy, that she's just, as you say, not very capable. But we might have to just leave that one there to the side. But I am glad that you mentioned the border issue, because this week we've seen New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Now, remember, he was the guy who said New York is a sanctuary city. Now he's warning that the city has run out of room thanks to the migrant crisis. Have a listen to this.
What happens when there's no more room? I mean, we're almost at capacity now, right?
No, we're there. We're not just saying we're out of room as a soundbite. We're out of room, literally. People are going to be eventually sleeping on the streets.
Okay, what would it take for you to close the front door?
I don't have the authorization to tell people they can't come into New York City.
Why not?
It's against the law.
Tommy, I don't have a lot of sympathy for the guy here. I mean, this is exactly what he wanted and what the left wanted, right?
Right, and make no mistake, these Democrats, these mayors, these governors, these leaders, they don't actually want to secure the border. They simply want more federal funding as they welcome in more migrants and illegal immigrants. And what I thought was really interesting about what he said is that people would soon be sleeping on the streets. I'm not sure if he's aware that there are Americans, namely veterans, American veterans, that are already sleeping on the streets. And there have been Americans that have been pushed out of shelters and pushed out of housing to house illegal immigrants. So when he says people are going to be sleeping on the street, I'm not so sure he's aware of the fact that there are many people that are currently sleeping on the street, and they have every legal right to be in this country. So all of this is an abomination. It all starts with poor leadership. The Democrats don't want to fix the problem because they want to keep themselves in power, and they know by ushering in millions of illegals, giving them voting rights and amnesty, that's their way to secure their power for generations or eternity to come. So every time they cry these crocodile tears, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it.
Well, Tommy, you're right about, I think, the long-term voting strategy, but also let's remember the way congressional seats are apportioned. It doesn't matter if the residents are here legally or illegally. That can wind up also getting a state more congressional seats and more electoral votes. But also, there's this other issue, too, on the southern border, which is newly released figures by Customs and Border Protection show that the number of Chinese migrants who've been coming across the southern border has surged, with sources saying that there's been more than 20,000 Chinese nationals crossing illegally since October, a 500% increase from this time last year. This would seem to have a huge national security implication, doesn't it?
It sure would. You know, actually, just today I talked to our Fox News international correspondent, Griff Jenkins, on this issue. He's in California right now, where most of the Chinese are coming through. And he said after speaking to a lot of these migrants, they're telling him that they're coming to the United States to work. So once again, they're coming for economic reasons. That's the best case scenario. If they have other, national security issues and risks, that's a whole nother can of worms that I don't even want to open. But if they're just coming here for economic reasons, that also goes against this whole notion that these people that are coming are asylum seekers and refugees. They're simply not. So the fact that people are gaming the system and getting away with it, national security implications on our resources, not sustainable, but we don't see an end in sight anytime soon.
Yeah, and finally, too, to another sort of migration issue that ties into what's happening in the Middle East, Joe Biden, or Joe Biden's office, let's say, not him necessarily, has ordered an 18-month pause on the removal of certain Palestinians in the U.S., and there's also talk going around that Biden may be trying to push for a Palestinian state, which I think would just be an absolute reward for Hamas. How much of this is driven by those sort of electoral politics where states with a high Palestinian or high Muslim population are driving basically domestic policy now in this Democrat White House?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look no further than Michigan, where Joe Biden is not doing well because he hasn't come out, I guess, in enough support of the Palestinian people, a.k.a. in a lot of regards, what that means is actually Hamas and Hamas sympathizers. So he's taking a lot of flack from young people who don't know what they're talking about, as well as some communities that are really pushing for more recognition of Gaza, but also wanting to send more aid to the Palestinians. And again, when we talk about this issue, it's so frustrating because everybody wants people to have humanitarian aid that need it. Everybody wants people that are in war-torn nations to be okay, innocent civilians. Unfortunately, Hamas has shown us time and time again that when you give resources to people that actually need it, it actually goes into the hands of terrorists. So this is really no different here, but this is all about votes. This is all about winning certain populations, but he's going to have a real struggle on his hands because there's no way he's going to be able to appease both sides, and he's going to have to make up his mind pretty soon on that issue. And I think he's got one foot in the door and one foot out. Unfortunately, that's not going to work out too well for him.
Tomi Lahren, you said he's got to make up his mind, but the question is, what sort of mind does he have? Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you soon again here on the U.S. Report.
Thanks so much.